All right, welcome everybody back to another episode of the Big Douglas Show. It is a draft on tap Wednesday, as always. Adam and Eva is in the co-host chair. Adam, what's happening, my brother?
How's it going? Just got kicked off for a second, but I'm back.
I saw that. That's all right. We're hoping to get Thor here eventually, but until then, it's me and you, buddy. It's interesting. We were talking offline before we got started. This is episode 7 this season, and it feels like we have no more. We have not sorted the quarterbacks any more today than we had 7 weeks ago, and some of that makes sense because there's still a long time to go for the draft. But it feels like it's been a long time since there's been this much pushback between the different prospects. It's interesting, right, Adam? I mean,
Yeah, and I think maybe not complicated it, but the signing of Mariota. So now people are clinging on to. Does that mean Jaden Daniels is going to be the guy they're going to go, or does that mean that Sam Howell will be the guy? I've heard a lot, which I can't believe in Mariota be the backup, but I think right now they're keeping everything close to the vest, and I truly do believe. I was listening to what Sheehan was saying. I think that they're not set on what looks like now Daniels or May. I think they're looking into both of them, but yeah, I think it's a short thing that we'll have one of them come April.
it's interesting. I get the easy comp for Mariota, right? But that ain't the guy that graduated from Oregon. You know what
No,
I mean? Like, it's easy to make that leap, right? From Mariota to Daniels, and then when the head coach is on the radio talking about one word comparisons, and he says game changer for Daniels. I get why you can get all that stuff. I also know they were interested in Sam Darnold, right?
right.
Which would not be if you're trying to link those things. However, I'm sure they talked to Darnold because the man that's picking the players just left San
That's
Francisco.
right.
He has great familiarity with him. But I don't think any of that actually will affect who they end up taking at pick number 2. I do think they will stay at number 2
Yeah.
and take whoever it is that they prefer. We were talking offline before we got started. It's not just like that there's such a difference in opinions, Adam, but it's like it feels like this cycle you either like one guy and hate another guy, or vice versa. I have very rarely seen anybody. I guess nationally that's not fair, but at least locally, where it's like I'd be happy with either one of them.
Right.
And it's strange to me. Do you have a favorite yet?
Well, Khalid Williams, of course, and then Daniels is who I'd like to see. But again, I've watched May's tape too. I broke down Daniels and May, and I think both of them would be legit pros. But I understand what's going on because you look at the other draft with Pickett, Willis, all these guys. People keep bringing up that draft, but then you go back to the Ben Roethlisberger, Eli Manning draft, with all those guys. So someone out there planted a seed that 3 quarterbacks won't be stars. So I think that the consensus is Caleb Williams will be, and either Daniels or May will be. So what's happening, I think, is like people are just finding problems with either Daniels or May. They're breaking them down, and then now you roll out McCarthy and you put him into the picture too. So that's a 4th quarterback, and now you've got a lot of people that have him as QB 2, 3, which again, I would talk to you about that. I just don't see it. Other people have other methods of evaluation. Just from what I watched on his Michigan film, I feel like it's just pure projection of trying to put him in the first round. Unless he's in the exact same run dominated offense he was at Michigan. But yeah, I think it's that time of year where something's got to be talked about. So it's too easy to just praise all the quarterbacks. I think it helps people's cause to really knock down one prospect to build up their prospect. It's just unfortunately it's the power of the beast right now.
It is. You mentioned JJ McCarthy. I was having a conversation yesterday. It's interesting to me what they've set up out there in LA with Harbaugh and Roman. It feels like, and we know Harbaugh's history. I mean, I think he averages 65 or 70% run game. I mean, all the way back to Stanford with Luck. It feels like those two are an odd fit with Justin Herbert.
Yeah, I do too. I was
And
talking
he's
about, you know,
expensive, right? I mean,
a couple months ago, like maybe they would look to move him, and he wants to bring in McCarthy into the fold. But I think one thing he probably learned in his time in NFL is how hard it is to find a quarterback. And I think, you know, coaches like him, I think that they think that they can mold their philosophy around him because he is a really good quarterback. So, you know, he's not going to change him at all. You know, he's just going to implement what he's going to try to do. But again, yeah, I personally, from watching him at Oregon, watching him with the Chargers, I don't know. It's a stark contrast between the two. So it'll be interesting. But they're about to have a fire sale, and they're just releasing people. They just released Mike Williams over there. Keenan Allen will be next. Khalil Mack, Bosa on the trade block. So I think Herbert's going to have a hard time,
are
unfortunately,
you
for a few years at
are you
least.
interested in Mike Williams?
Man, you know,
He's
I
kind
have
of what they need, right, in that receiver room is
exactly
a
what they
bigger
need.
bodied guy.
Yeah, it's the injury history. You know, it's pretty deep with him. I'd have to look at the exact numbers, but yeah, I don't think you can trust him. You know, even if you're going to pay him the money, that he's going to be your guy. That, you know, to even hope for 13, 14 games, I think would be asking a lot right now. But I like him a lot. But yeah, only if he's reasonable, and I think somebody will pay him. But I hope it's not Washington because I think, you know, there's a couple guys in this draft. Like you got a guy Johnny Wilson out of Florida State,
What is
should be
it?
available third round. Not a total game breaker, but again, the guy's 6'6", I think it's 240 something, you know, legit possession receiver. So if you're looking for a guy on that third option, I don't think you should go out in free agency right now. I think there's a couple of guys like that in the draft. So he'll get paid by somebody. It's one of the teams that has a lot of cap to spend, but yeah, I wouldn't count on him staying healthy. That's the only problem with him.
Is Diami a guy that gets a boost from the Cliff Kingsbury system, do you think? Or he'll be done and they're looking for at least two receivers in the draft? Because
No,
I mean, they don't
I
have
think
a lot of receivers on the roster right now, right?
right. No, I think he should. I think he should get an opportunity. But again, the cliche with him is, you know, he's really a go route guy. So I think for Cliff Kingsbury to really succeed, I think you really have to, you know, be able to break down that whole route tree. And that's what I would hope he really dedicated in the offseason. Because if he did, I think he will stick. But if he doesn't, I'm telling you, I would point to that right away that he's just still extremely limited. Some of these receivers just don't believe, you know, they work on catching most in the offseason. But like someone like him, even though does have some concentration drop, for me, he just has to refine his route tree, and I think he gets more opportunities. So I like his burst, I like his ability, but yeah, I don't know. I think that they're going to bring in guys, and I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't make it because he doesn't really offer you anything on special teams. I think they're going to be looking for that. And again, you know, they signed Eckler, so I think Eckler is going to be more of your, you know, you're probably your third option. So where does that leave someone like Brown?
You mentioned Eckler, and they drafted Rodriguez last year.
Yeah,
And the new staff has made it apparent that they do not care who got drafted last year
right.
if they don't like them. I mean, I think we've seen that with Ricky Stromberg and his demise. I think maybe it's too tough, but obviously they don't see him as a starter. Um, what what is it that they need to do next? They need the tackles and corners. They've left themselves in a good position to be able to go best player available in the draft, which is the way you're supposed to use free agency. It's been
Right.
nice.
Right.
Who do you think they look at next? What position, at least, do they still need here?
I would hope they look at left tackle because, you know, I think if you release Leno, I feel like there's got to be some other plan than just wait to the draft, especially if you're not taking a tackle with the first round. That's why I think people have some juice. Some fans that are on the Howe bandwagon are hoping that it was a signal that they'll maybe go tackle in the first round, which I don't think is going to happen. So I'd be surprised if we get to the draft and they haven't already got somebody penciled in as the starter, because right now, again, there's Wiley at right tackle. Everybody else, there is nobody. So I mentioned to you before we started, you know, Jonah Williams from Cincinnati. I liked him. Left tackle, his whole career, just got moved to the right side, did decent. So, you know, he's a decent placeholder if you decide to draft someone. But again, I think you have to be aggressive in this draft now. I think, you know, you have 2 second round, 2 third round picks. And I've been saying forever, I think the end of that first round, you're going to see a run on especially offensive tackles, offensive linemen. And I think if you're really looking for, you know, a plug and play left tackle that you really want to start and be, you know, day one, I think you might have to move up to the first round. I think there'll be a bunch of right tackles, interior guys in the beginning of that first round, and some guys that are, you know, questionable, maybe if they should move inside. But I think that Washington needs to be aggressive at this point because I don't, if you're gonna draft a guy like Daniels or May, you can't just get some mid-level guy and expect to protect his blind side. I think you have to have a better plan than that. But again, we'll have faith in them until they show us otherwise. So
it's we must have been doing these too many times together, because I was just getting ready to ask you about that. It's a GM's dream to have all those picks, right? And the
right,
GM's love picking players. However, you're right. I've done enough of these mock drafts, and people say, "Oh, mock drafts," but it is a good tool to kind of see where guys start falling and where options might be. It's all a crapshoot, I know, but it does feel like there's going to be a run on tackles there at the end of the first round. I'm with you. I've been on it for a while. I got no problem trading those seconds to get back up into the first, or if it takes the second and third, that'd be beautiful. But I think
right,
those seconds be able to get back into the first round, particularly if you know you're getting a guy, or at least you feel like you're getting a guy that you're starting from day one.
right, right.
Who are those guys to you at the bottom of the first round?
So, after you get past the big guys, Joel Alt and Fashanu, a lot of guys are being questioned as potential right tackles. I really like Amarius Mims. They're saying right tackle, keep him there. But this kid out of Washington.
Mims can play left tackle.
Yeah, he can play left tackle.
But he's athletic enough to get over there.
I believe it too. But I keep hearing, the two names I keep hearing are Troy Fontenot, I'm saying that right, left tackle out of Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And another one that's a possible guy, right tackle, left tackle, is Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma.
Yep, I like him.
I think those are two high-end guys that can play left tackle. You can bring them in immediately. And those are the kind of guys I think that are going to they won't be available in the beginning of the first round. I think you'll see more of the interior guys there. Those guys will start to go into that. I really believe like that mid-20s, early 20s. That's a sweet spot I think Washington should move up to and get one of those guys. Because, again, if let's say it's most likely it's a second and a third to move up because it's the beginning pick of the second round. Mm-hmm. You still have those. You still have that other second round. You still have another third round, fourth. So I think you pull the trigger, and I think that with the offensive line, I do think that they have a plan. Maybe they have their eye on somebody that there's talk of being moved or traded. That's what I was talking with a friend of mine yesterday. But another guy out there, Mika Becton. But again, another guy with injuries. But again, he's surprising that he's still out there, because if I was Washington, I'd definitely sniff into that. But there's absolutely no way that they're not talking to a couple guys right now. I think it's more about semantics, money. That's what's really going on with this second wave now.
I saw that Morgan Moses got traded today. Actually, they got a nice little return for him. Moved up like 20 spots in the draft and added a sixth round pick. You know what's crazy? Morgan Moses is only 33 years old. Doesn't it feel like he's a lot older than that? Like Kendall Fuller's 29 and Morgan Moses is 33. Tell me how the math works.
Yeah. I don't get it, but I feel bad for him, honestly, because I think Baltimore, I think this is, if
that was the spot to be.
If Henry can stay healthy, I think that offense is going to be really hard to stop. And, he would have been a key cog in that, but he goes to the Jets. I think that they're going to struggle. They're going to add some key pieces, but again, you're banking on Aaron Rodgers again, staying healthy. I've seen this show too often, with these vet quarterbacks, injury. Then the next year it's nagging this, nagging that, and he's not going to play. So I think he went to a bad situation, unfortunately, but I think Baltimore, they came out just like always. They came out bandits with that one.
Rough year for corners, but man, they need some. What round do you have to wait for until you start getting some value on that, Adam?
Oh man, I'll be honest with you. I don't love this corner draft. That's one thing that's really concerning. I think that some of the prospects that stood out to me were more of the safety guys. But I think that with the signing of Chin, I think with Reeves, I think they're probably going to go with who they have. They could look at a guy in the later rounds, but as of right now, I haven't really scouted much on the corners. But I've told you, before we started, that kid from Toledo, hands down, to me is the best corner. But I don't see the draft. If right now you're talking about St. Juice and Forbes and a bunch of fourth, fifth guys right now. So I think that they're going to have
Forbes last year. I forget.
What's that?
Where were you on Forbes last year? I forget.
I really liked him. Him coming in, and I still feel the same way. All the bus talk, I don't get it, because bad coaching can really, slow a player's progression around. And I just saw some things on tape that I do think can get fixed. I think that he's thinking too much. And again, that's a problem with rookies across the board anyways. But I really think with Witt and Quinn, I think you have coaches that are really going to be able to play to his strengths. So I expect a big year out of him. I think that he'll end up being their cornerback one for at least this year until they're looking at other guys. But a guy that I don't know where he'll be available because I've heard up and down things about him is Cooper DeJean from Iowa.
Yeah.
This kid's a freak. And I've heard as early as second, but then I've heard people talk about, third. That's someone with Washington, one of their third round picks. If he's available, I really like him if he's somehow available. But I think that in the end, he'll probably be the second or third corner that come off the board. But, we talked about Kool-Aid McKinstry for the show, Nate Wiggins, guys that are running really fast. But I'm just not seeing the it factor on tape that's really going to wow me. TJ Tampa from Iowa State, if he somehow is there, like I said, that with that late third round, which is that compensatory pick or the fourth, that's a sweet spot for him. But I think someone's going to look at him, great size, 6'1", runs a 4.45. I think someone's going to come up in the second and get him. I just think for the second round, for Washington's needs, although they're not set at cornerback whatsoever, I think you really have to focus on the offensive line and even tight end in that area, because I think that those are even bigger positions of weakness.
And I agree with you about the corner spot, but it's interesting. If you recall, it when they drafted St. Juice, the comp there was Richard Sherman.
Yep.
I mean, that was it. And so now to have Dan Quinn is just kind of odd. Feels like that is another guy due for a bump in the system.
Yeah, he likes the big guy. So let's see if he can get the most out of him. One thing we saw with Witt in Dallas is he gets the most out of his corners. So that's where I probably feel the most confident right now, even more than Kingsbury. I think that's more of a mystery. But with the defense, I really do think that if they are what they are and they go into the draft with a couple draft picks that are, hopefully end up being starters, but the way it is right now, I think that there'll be a solid defense with the opportunity to get better. If, we get one of these young guys, I talked about before we go to, Edgerrin Cooper for Texas A&M, they need these guys, these playmakers, not trying to duplicate Micah Parsons, but find these, Rome prospects, these big DBs, linebackers that can really just line up all over the place and just create havoc. That's the way I think that this defense is going to be predicated on, is just, havoc. And as far as Curl, I think the writing's on the wall. He's not going to get his money. I just have a feeling that philosophy-wise, he's probably not a match with what they want to do. Even though we've heard that they're, going to roll out some 3 safeties, I think that's where Jeremy Chin came in. So
it's they assigned DNs. You're not going to be able to run on this team. I'll say that's what they've added, are run stoppers at the ends. But it feels like we still need some juice.
Oh yeah.
Where are we looking at in the draft for juice guys? Because we don't have that kind of explosiveness off the edge right now.
No, right now, what I was telling you, I think that, Shaka Tony, he ends up being the odd man out. You have last year Jones and Henry. Again, these are, more your rotational guys. I think unless you're picking early, to me, the best one in this draft right now is, it's a 1A, 1B for me, is Jared Verse and Chop Robinson. Yeah. I think those guys are going to go in the top 20. So I think you throw it out. After that, a guy that I evaluated that's really risen up charts is Darius Robinson. He's a guy that played inside his whole career, just moved to the edge last year and had the best game of his career, in the SEC against, had a really good game against Alabama, some really good numbers. I think you really start to look, like I said, maybe that early third round, talk about Penn State, Chop Robinson's
his running mate on the other side.
Adisa Isaac. He's a guy that I just started watching. So he's one. Braylon Trice is another one from Washington. I've watched a couple with him. He's a little more, stiff, not quite, a bender as, some of these other guys. And then, you just start to get into, day 3, hopefuls. Again, there's some decent depth here, but to me, it's clear why Washington signed multiple defensive ends, because this class, it's not a bad class. It's just, like I said, after you have Verse and Chop Robinson, there's a significant drop off. So a guy that I'm just starting to watch tonight that I think would be really good for them is Mohamed Kamara from Colorado State.
Yeah, I've been hearing about him.
Yeah, he's a guy that I'm really high on right now, and I think that he is going to rise up draft boards. But I think he's the kind of guy that you can find with that one of those third round picks. And he's
one of those twitched up guys, right?
Yeah. Yeah, really can bend the edge, long arms, good burst. I really like him. But yeah, I'm still going through these guys. But there's really, other than those top two, there's really not anyone that jumps out. It's like, okay, they're going to supplant the guys that they sign in free agency. I think for now, unless another name comes up, you're going to see Armstrong on one side, and then the rotation on the other side with the guys we got.
We talked about moving back up into the first for an offensive lineman. Would you do the same for A-Chop Robinson?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think if the cost is, your second, another second, probably be that. Like, I think he's going to be in the top 20, somewhere between that 15 to 20 range. I think he's going to continue to rise up. So, let's just say he's at 20. So to move up from there, I think it would cost them both of their seconds and either their third or, something next year. But I'm still watching more on him. I don't know if I would trade that much because, again, I'm not sure. He's athletic freak, really good numbers, really good motor. Love what I saw on tape from him. I'm just not totally sold that I would, give up that much to move up. I think right now it's like by committee approach. But yeah, he's a good prospect. I just think he's going to go too early for that range, for a trade up range. I think it'll be expensive.
Philosophically, you prefer to trade your extra picks in the current year or later? Like, you prefer just we've got a bunch of picks this year, I'll give you both the seconds instead of, a second this year and a second next year or a third next year.
Right. I think you got a lot of
matter to you either way.
I think, well, this particularly, I think you have a lot of holes. So if you can get away with, with the exception of a first next year, if you can get away with, making a big trade up and you don't have to give a first next year, maybe a second, third next year, I'm definitely all for that rather than doing it this year.
Instead of doing it this year, it'll be interesting to see what the defense looks like. We talked a little bit about this as it rounds out, and we've been talking about DNs and juice, but maybe they don't worry about the juice on the ends and they get pressure up the middle, and they use this, they use Luvu as a missile, if nothing else. And I think Jamin Davis is going to get the biggest bump out of anybody.
I do too.
In this defense. So maybe it's just more stunts and sending linebackers than it is your traditional front four that you think of with one guy having a whole bunch of juice off the edge. Maybe that's not the plan.
Right, because somebody was pointing to me with Dallas. There's a lot of situations they use 3 defensive ends, but I was talking to a Dallas friend of mine. He's like, "Yeah, but that's because the defensive tackles." He's like, "Your team doesn't have that problem." So we could have a situation where they do 5 wide, they line up, and they could have Mathis as their third defensive tackle, and then whoever else there. But he's another one that I think after spending a second round on him 2-0 years, I think that he's got to really contribute something this year. This is going to be his last year, but they need him to step up. I'm not sure. Ridgeway, I think, is still under contract. I think when we got him, so he's another one that I like in that rotation. But I think they still should look day 3 somewhere for one of those cloggers, because I think that they're going to need it with Saquon Barkley now in Philadelphia. I think that, the Dallas really kind of stayed the same, but I think that, the Giants improved in some areas, but the Philadelphia definitely did. So they're always competing with the East.
Are you interested in Tyron Smith if he's healthy?
I think, again, talk to my Dallas friend. When you get him, you just got to be satisfied with 13, 14 games a year. He's not, he had that freak thing where he missed a lot of time, but for the most part, he's giving you 13, 14 games a year. If you can get that guy, again, it's left tackle. I still think he's still going to get anywhere between 10 to 15 million. I think you have to consider it's just not a long-term deal. I think if you can get away with they're dishing out all these 3-year contracts, but I'd love to see the language, because I really feel like a lot of them are 2-year deals. I think that we can see that pattern. I think if you can do that with Smith and you're really just paying him for 2 years, let's say it's guaranteeing $30 million for 2 years. I think you have to consider it, because to go into this draft and really just pray you're going to get that answer, you're taking a quarterback, man. You gotta protect your investment. So I would do that, and then again try to move up, or get with the first pick in the second round, get a left tackle, because it's key.
Khalil Mack redoes his deal to stay in Los Angeles.
I figured he'd be the one that stays.
Yeah, and so I'm assuming then that Bosa is out. One of the two of them was going to be out.
Yeah,
and I
think
he's been hurt a lot.
Yeah, I think they'll end up releasing. I think the league is just going to be like, go ahead, just release him. We're not going to, we'll probably get him on a better deal than what's left on this contract anyway. So I think, he'll get that. He'll probably clear waivers and, you know, watch Philadelphia get him somehow.
Greg Newsome is on the trading block from the Browns. Would you be interested in him?
I like
young,
him.
I think only 24 or 25.
Yeah, I can't believe he's so young. Felt like forever ago. I evaluated him actually. I really like him. So yeah, I would definitely see what the cost is there. Nothing too high, of course, but yeah, he's a good prospect.
What are you in for? A third, one of the thirds, pick 40? Or you high?
That late third round, I think would probably be a good fit. So that's addressing a key spot in your defensive backfield. Yeah, again, another big corner, nice size. Yeah, I would invest it. Yeah.
All right, buddy. I think that's good for this week. We'll be back next week. Hope Thor's all right. We'll try to get him back another time. These things happen. I think next week, Adam, we'll do maybe our first mock draft of the season. Getting close.
Sounds good. It's about time. Yep.
No doubt. All right, buddy. We will see you next week.
Have a good one.